Welcome back. It's Carrie again. Um, okay, today's topic is being homeless. Um, no uncommon thing for me here. I have frequently found myself homeless. Yeah, I'm a real winner. I know. Sometimes it was because I was just a rebel, intolerant of things, young, foolish, but did what I felt I had to do. I've been very, very blessed though, that in each and every situation, whether I was a Christian or not, God was definitely looking out for me. And you're gonna hear some of that. I'm gonna go through real brief stuff when I do the testimony, which will be probably next week. But regarding my own homeless situation, everybody's is different. Um, it's real easy for us to label it and say, well, they must be involved with drugs, alcohol, sex, or gambling. Okay, that's not always the case. Some do prefer to be homeless. They don't want help. They're they're done with the modern world and the way it operates and functions and being beaten up. So they quit, so to speak. I haven't quit yet. Many times wanted to, a couple times tried to. Um, did discover I am definitely not a quitter. Even when I want to quit, I find I can't. I'm quite a fighter. I would actually call myself a warrior, and that's probably where that rebellious spirit comes from. To constantly keep fighting, and a lot of times I get myself into situations where I'm not even fighting for myself. I'm truly fighting for the moral fiber of a situation that somebody else might be in, not even just me. But going back to basically being homeless, the first time I found myself homeless, I was 19 years old. And I had this huge argument with my mom. Things were just not going well. When I was 16, 17 years old, is why I think my rebellious spirit kind of kicked in. Not because of something I did, but more so because of um, situations I found myself in with friends. And then once I had to start fighting that, the war within was on, so to speak. And if you hear any background noise, I'm really sorry. I'm still having some sound issues every time my refrigerator runs. It seems like this picks it up so bad. And unfortunately, I don't live in a mansion upstairs or downstairs anymore. So we need to deal with the limited space that we have here. And it's, I don't know, new refrigerator, but it's really loud. So we'll deal with it. I know you're in this for the long run with me. We've got this together. We're a team. Anyway, so I was homeless, and what I did was I just packed everything I had in my trunk. I had a car, and I packed everything in the trunk of my car. I didn't have a job at the time, and ended up driving to about 20 minutes away to a nearby town where I used to hang out with a lot of the local kids. There was a strip that we would drive, and you got to know people. There were teen clubs. Of course, I was 19, so those were getting a little old for me, but yet I wasn't old enough to go to a bar. I didn't have any money anyway. What was I going to do? Where was I going, right? It's not like I could do anything but go there and see people on this strip or, in one of the parking areas where we would gather and talk. So, luckily, I had met this couple, and, there was actually, the night I met them, there was these two young men. One was white and one was Asian. Okay, I'm sorry. I do need to state that because this is actually kind of funny the way it happened. But they were both on motorcycles. the white boy had a girlfriend on the back of his and the Asian didn't. And for some reason, I don't know, I had known the white boy for quite some time. And he, we had kind of built a friendship, and I was getting to know his girlfriend really well. And they were really nice, you know, young people. And I had never seen him with this Asian before. So I remember stopping and talking to them. And um, I know I had met, this was like a couple weeks before I was homeless when I actually met them. I should clarify that. And so I had been hanging out with this Asian boy who also had a younger brother. Well, his younger brother ended up dating my sister. And so then I got to know, you know, the older boy, and we would go on motorcycle rides all the time. I remember one time saying I had to be home in like 10 minutes, or, you know, I was going to be in big trouble. And he goes, well, that's okay. He says, we'll make it. And he had to take me home on his bike because that's how they picked me up. So it was like we were seeing each other, but not officially dating or anything like that. But things were going great with me and this Asian guy. And my sister and her boyfriend, so we were dating brothers at that time. And everything was going good. And then I ended up, he said we'd make it home in 10 minutes. It's a 20-minute drive at normal speed. I was not a speeder, so I could tell you it was 20 minutes normal speed. And he goes, get on. So I got on, and we made it in 8 minutes. I mean, all I can tell you is I hung on to him, buried my face in his back, and I don't know how fast we were going, but we were going fast. And it was like, please God, no deer, no deer, no deer, no deer. We're gonna be dead, you know. We made it. That was probably the most adventurous thing I've ever done. Especially on the back of a motorcycle. You're totally trusting this person who's driving it at 100 miles an hour, and you're no helmets. I mean, it wasn't like it is nowadays with all the safety precautions. It was you hopped on and you went. Okay. Um, he was a great guy, and things were going really, really good. And then I left my parents' home, so I was basically homeless. So I stopped to talk to them, and in the course of it, it was like a day had gone by, and I slept in my vehicle, and I had $20. I remember using the I didn't want to say names of businesses, but it was a gas station, like a convenience store. And I went in their bathroom to use their bathroom, kind of clean up and let my hair down and stuff like that. And when I left there, I decided I was going to go, get something to eat for a couple bucks. And I realized I didn't have my $20 on me. I thought, oh no, I must have lost it in the bathroom. By the time I went back, looked for it, and asked at the register. And of course, nobody turned it in, and it wasn't there, so somebody had taken it, and that was it. I had no more money. All I had was a pack of gum. So for 2 days, I just chewed a couple pieces of gum. That was it. But on day two, the guy was seeing, and I don't know if the two boys had talked, but we went in. He said, "Well, are you living in your vehicle?" And I'm like, yeah, I am. Not the guy I'm dating, but the other boy, the one with the girlfriend. And he says, well, why? And I kind of explained I got into this big fight with my mom. I'm not going back. I'm going to live in my vehicle, try to get a job. I don't know how. I didn't have a cell phone at the time. They weren't available. So I was just grinning and bearing it, so to speak. And then he came back like into town later, at night, and he says, "You don't have a place to stay tonight, do you?" And I said, "Well, my vehicle, I'll just park it, wherever until they throw me out." So he goes, "No, come home with me." Because I talked to my mom and dad, and they were remodeling half of our house. There is a mattress and stuff in one of the rooms. You can stay in the remodeling portion, which is away from the family, but you might as well stay there. It's safe. Like, okay, so I went back to his place, and I got to meet his parents, and his mom even says, well, here, we had dinner, but made me a plate and insisted I eat. And, they were remodeling it. There was a bed, well, was going to be a bedroom that had a mattress in it, and across the hall, a bathroom with some functions. So, kind of had my own space. And I stayed there for about a week. I had meals with them. I mean, they were a wonderful family. The most I could do, did end up getting a job. And and so I started going to work every day. And the most I could do was leave like $40 on the counter one day. So, I did that. I thought, like, owe them something. They're feeding me. But here's the irony of it. When he took me home to meet his parents, the previous job that I had, I sat down and I looked at his dad and I says, well, I know you. And he goes, you used to work in the office, didn't you? And I said, yes, he worked in the warehouse. I was like, yes, I did. Not anymore. Because I had gone from like receptionist there to working in the catalog department to, um, and did all kinds of different things. But wasn't working there anymore. And so here, yeah, the irony was I had actually worked with his father just previously, a few months earlier. And so that, to me, that was like God just placing me right in there. People I already knew, so I definitely felt comfortable. I'm like, he was a nice guy that I knew, and I got to meet his wife. And, then I believe he had a younger sister, so I met her. They could have been more hospitable. They didn't really know me, and before I got there, the father didn't know who this girl was he's bringing home. And I could talk to this boy about anything. His girlfriend was so nice about the whole thing. They were technically strangers that really cared. And I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And on top of it, the family life that I had is how I thought all families work. This was actually the first experience I had with a family so different than mine. It's like, this was loving, this was kind, this was everyone wanting to talk to each other, everyone cooperating. Um, it was very different. Nobody trying to trump somebody else. It was beautiful. And then, I did, through the course of life, meet other families, and I realized how dysfunctional mine was. And I was like, oh, okay, this isn't how families are supposed to be. But, each to their own. Every family is going to be different. Just mine was weird, very weird. Still is. I'm I'm very estranged from my family. I can't do it anymore. I've estranged from them 3 different times, starting at 19. But that wasn't very long. What ended up happening was me and the Asian boy that I was seeing. This other boy said, "Why don't you two get an apartment? Why don't you get together?" And my grandmother had actually loaned me some money to get an apartment because she understood I wasn't going to go home. I'll die on the streets before I'll go home. I'm not doing this anymore. And so my grandmother, felt kind of bad and wanted to help me get a place. However, and I thought, well, yeah, I guess, me and this guy could live together. We're getting along great. We're having a great relationship so far. When he decided to let us know that he couldn't be in a full-on relationship with anybody. He couldn't move out from his family home and live with somebody because he was already promised in marriage to a girl in a neighboring town an hour away. Well, right now I live in that neighboring town an hour away, as irony would have it. And back then, though, it was an hour away. And I was like, "You what?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm engaged technically to a girl he had only met a few times, but their families had arranged and they were going to, I don't know if her family or his family or if this was going to be something new, but it was all set. They were going to have this restaurant. Everything was going to be set up for them. They were going to be married. And apparently, according to their culture, that's the way it goes." I was like, oh, I had no idea. This guy's already promised to somebody, so speaking, goes, you don't break that. You have to follow through with it. Which was great. I mean, we didn't really see each other much after that because I did end up going home. I got on my knees and, basically, I didn't get on my knees and beg, but I did go to my mother. She said she'd think about it, but she was not nice about it. When I did move back home, um, I got a basement unit, so to speak. So I wasn't allowed to live in the upstairs portion with the rest of the family. It was an unfinished basement, just had drywall on the concrete sides, but the rafters were there, the concrete on the floor, the beams. Um, I mean, it wasn't like old stones or bricks or anything like that. It was a newer basement, but not finished off. I had a bed, and I had to go up the stairs to turn lights on and off. I didn't have a lamp, and basements can be very dark, and so I'd have to turn the light off and find my way to my bed, which luckily was at the bottom of the stairs. I could just crawl in it. I had a bed and a dresser, and that was it. Um, which is fine. I just learned how to deal with it. It wasn't beggars can't be choosers, right? So that's what ended up happening the first time, but it only lasted 2, 3 weeks, I think, and I was back in my dysfunctional family. Um, the second time I ended up leaving was with my first husband. So if you watch part 1 of my first husband video, you'll kind of see that me and my mom got into another big explosion about me going out with my husband at the time. And I packed my stuff up in his truck, went to his family's home, and from there told him I was looking for a place to live and I was going to call some friends, but his mother ended up insisting I move in with them. So we did. We moved my stuff in, and I lived there for a while and ended up staying with my first husband the whole rest of the time. Oh, by the way, going back to our away city, well, that's of course the city I'm living in now. And so I ordered Chinese food the other day, right? And the name of the restaurant was this guy that I dated's first name. And it didn't dawn on me until just a couple days ago. And because this was like a week or 2 ago, I ordered the food. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, wait, that was his name. I wonder if that's his restaurant. I'm not going to go there. It was delivery. I'm not going to go check this out. I'm not going to go see if that was the guy. But the irony of all of it just still gets me. And then the fact that I ordered Chinese food from this restaurant with his name on it, but it just like clicked all of a sudden the other day that that was his name. And it's like, okay, how odd is that? Life has a really weird way of keep running you around in circles, I'm telling you. Now, the third time, if you've watched my murder video, part 1 probably, you will realize that the third time that I was homeless was when I had to live in a domestic abuse shelter. Escaped, my home, and went to the shelter, and that was a shock because I went from this big beautiful home to like almost a dorm room, but probably a little bigger than a dorm room. It had a closet, a small closet, a nightstand, and a bed, and you could only keep 7 days worth of clothing in your room at any point in time. They had very little storage space for your stuff, and that was it. And that's how I had to live for almost 3 months with nobody else in my direct room, but each unit had 2 rooms that shared a bathroom. So we each had our own room, and then you'd come out into a open counter bathroom space, and then the bathroom and shower and stuff was off to one side. But and we'd share that space, and then you would go out, into the rest of the facility. That was very different because there were people would come and go, and a variety of different types of women. Some would be your prostitutes, not streetwalkers, but they'd get beat up, or they'd be trying to get away from their pimps, and they would go there. There were some that it was pretty bad. Um, a girl was beaten up with a fork, stabbed many, many, many times in the face and body with a fork. That the guy was trying to kill her. And she wasn't a prostitute, but so this is just an example of then some of the women that would come and go from there that I would interact with. I didn't go back to mine. Almost every woman that didn't leave there, though, either went back to the street or back to their men. And, it's sad. You don't stay in contact with them. I did the best I could to. It helped me talk to them and help talk them through their problems because then I didn't have to focus on mine. But I'm not gonna lie, there were some crazies. There were some where it was like, lock that bedroom door because I don't know about that girl, and they couldn't be on drugs or drinking or anything like that. Everything was secure coming and going. So it was like being in a jail. But yet you wanted that environment because it was needed. That safety was needed. I remember that one of the first few days I was there, well, it was the first couple days I didn't see this vehicle, but after the first few days, then like 3 or 4 days in a row, I would see this vehicle right outside the building. And it was no hidden secret that it was a women's, shelter. The whole town knew it, and the whole town knew where it was, but there was such high security around and in the building that those women were safe. However, you could come and go if you left the facility. You were on your own, until you got back. But you had to sign in and out and say where you were going. So if you did not come back when expected or within a certain period of time, they were trying to find you. Like make sure she's still alive. Is she still safe? Are you coming back? So they were great people. But there was this vehicle up front. And there was this guy in it wore this hat, and I swore I had seen him before. So after like the second time I saw him, I'm like, yeah, I've seen that guy sitting somewhere before. I can't remember where, but I've seen him. What's he doing here? Finally, like on day 3, I came home from work, or I call it home because it was home. I came back from work and parked in the garage and then went through the front door of the building because he was always parked up front. So as I was walking across, I decided, no, I'm going to confront this guy. He's here every single day, sitting there as if he's watching women coming and going. I'm not going to have this. So I start crossing the road to the car, and unprotected, mind you. But again, I can be a rebel. I just a lack of fear. I don't know what it is, but I felt like I was being hunted at the time. So if he was looking for me, well, he found me. What do you want? Yeah, I'm not playing this game kind of attitude. So I start walking up to him, and as soon as I get like halfway to the vehicle, he takes off. Never comes back. Okay, well, got rid of one. I don't know if he's like, I can't believe she was going to come right up to me. I think, there was a level of trying to scare the women that were there. And it's like, dude, you don't scare me. You can do something or not. Because we ain't playing this game. Done. When I'm pushed to my limit, yeah, I'll confront it. There's definitely no doubt about it. So I lived there until for about 3 months until I moved to the town I'm living in now, which is about 2 hours away, and it's closer to where I was born and raised. So, and before I got engaged, after my first marriage and engaged to that guy, I had moved over to the Green Bay area at that time, and so I used to live here, and so I came back here because it's the only place that really felt like home when I was single for the very first time on my own after my first marriage. And so I wanted to come back to that. A lot has changed. I don't think for the better around here. I was kind of surprised about that, but it's still home, so I'll keep it. My almost fourth time of being homeless was pretty recently. It was within like the last 6 months, and I ran into some financial expenses I wasn't expecting, and keep in mind I've had to start this borrowing money from people to move, borrowing money from my divorce attorney. Um, Wonderful people did step up to the plate to kind of help me out, and I owed them money back. I still do, which out of part of the divorce proceedings that I got from our retirement fund. I'm hoping to, there's just enough there to pay them all back, so that'll be a clean slate. But other financial expenses, a name change, driver's license, and all that stuff. I mean, none of that's cheap, and I had no money to start with, and so I was starting out behind already. And once I got on my feet, then there were still other expenses, financial things that had to be taken care of from my divorce. So, even though people had already borrowed me some money, I was like, I'm not asking anybody for any more money. This is ridiculous because the money that I banked from the divorce was, I paid them back. It was already gone. So I wasn't going to get myself into any more financial promises that I couldn't keep. I wasn't going to do that to people. So I started getting in this hole, and I said, I'm going to be homeless. I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. I'm going to be homeless. Well, as luck would have it, like 2 weeks before I needed the money, overtime kicked in. I'll tell you, I worked 20, 30 hours overtime each week so that when I got that paycheck, I was good, but just barely. And so luckily, more overtime, came in. And I was working almost 70-hour weeks for quite some time to get myself, back on track, which is good because now I'm within a budget that is within reason. It's still tight if I only work 40 hours, but I'm surviving it. It's not the end of the world. So that's really good. In a way, I say God saved me with that. By that time, I was a Christian, and instead of going to others, which I could have done, and made empty promises and told lies, no, I let God handle it this time, and He did. He didn't just hand me the money; He made me work for it, but He provided me a way, and I took it. So you betcha, I'm on that. With that though, came an experience that I got to have also helping the homeless. So um, there is a mission in the town that I live in that is kind of like a rehab center, but it's a Christian based and it's for men only. And one of the men that I go to church with is a resident like advisor there. He does some Bible studies and lives there and handles, let's just say, testing of the men because they have to test constantly for drugs and alcohol. They can't have any in them. A lot of them that are there are recuperating from drugs and alcohol, trying to, get clean, and they get to live there for free. But they do have to attend church services and Bible studies and learn about Christ and some other rehab programs that they have to attend. And a lot of those gentlemen will come to our church. I should also state some of them are there based on their probation, um, or parole, I guess you could say. They can be released there, and they have to serve a certain amount of time there, which means follow all the rules, but it's part of their release program as well if they agree to it. So, and I don't think everybody gets offered this program. So, it depends on the type of crime I think you've committed. But anyway, a lot of these gentlemen come to our church. I'm not ashamed to go, introduce myself. Hey, how you doing? How are you? But I work with the gentleman from church that lives there with the men on helping homeless women because we don't have a shelter for women at this time. They're working on one in this county, but there's nothing there. So we can try to put them up in hotels. We can drive them to two other counties that aren't exactly close by, but they're the closest. where there are women's shelters for them to get help. Um, and so I kind of offered to start helping out with that if, he came across any women. As oftentimes the women will come to the Bible studies, things like that, which is fabulous. And I love myself a good Bible study. Um, but throughout the course of this, there was one morning I had gone to church, and the guy I go to church with, he waved at me to come to the lobby, let's go out in the lobby. Church was just starting, and so I followed him out there, and I'm like, yeah. And he's told me that he received a phone call from one of the residents, one of the gentlemen that was staying at the facility, and he happened to go down to where the homeless hang out to visit some of them because he used to stay there for a while. And he said a woman showed up the night before, and she's just laying there with a sleeping bag. And it's primarily all men there. There might be one or two women that stop by here or there, but it's basically all men. And he said, well, maybe you could help her. And so he told me, he goes, do you want to go down and talk to her? I was like, well, sure. And he goes, well, okay, she's down by the gazebo. And what gazebo? Is there a gazebo outside? Or I'm like, he goes, no, the gazebo downtown where the homeless live, or the homeless stay. They stay in that gazebo for shelter. I go, I don't even know where this place is. I don't know much about downtown. So he goes, okay, well, I'll take you. So I'm thinking we're going to go after church, but no, we go right there at the beginning of church service. He just, come on, let's go. Okay, we're going to go save a homeless woman. My first time. So we go, and again, if you hear me wheezing a little bit or coughing, it's still me cleaning out the crap from my allergies, and it has affected my asthma a little bit, and I won't use an inhaler, so I'm gonna have to deal with it a little bit. It'll be gone in a week or two. Trust me, I know. I've lived with this my whole life, so not that big of a deal. Sorry if it bothers you, though. Okay, anyway. There we go. Okay, clear the lungs. And so I went and I just went with him down there in his vehicle, and sure enough, there was a lady sitting there, and there's a whole gazebo, and it's off down under a bridge. You hear about these bridge people where they live under the bridges for shelter. Well, that's kind of what this was like, but it was off to the side of the bridge, and it was a big gazebo area, all concrete though, with no covering, and it was all open on the sides, so if it rained, they would get soaked. And then off to the left was old railroad tracks and garbage, and it was not a great place to be. I could picture people taking drugs there 24/7, type atmosphere. But where the actual gazebo was and where the people were hanging out, they didn't seem so bad. So we sat and we talked to the girl a little bit. Then all of a sudden, I heard, the guy I was with say this other guy's name. And I knew this guy's name from one of the residents that had come to our church some time ago. I hadn't seen him in a really long time. And I turned around, and sure enough, that's who it is. And I scream his name, and I'm like, I go and I just give him this big hug. I'm like, where have you been? I haven't seen you in church in forever. And I'm so excited to see him, that he's healthy, he's okay, because he showed such promise, and he would always take notes in church, and he just really seemed to be, and then all of a sudden he was gone. And I was like, I hope he's okay. I didn't really know a lot of his background and stuff. I'd met him. I think we talked very briefly once. And then after that, he was just kind of inspiring other people. So I had such hope for him. And then he was, like I said, just gone. But there he was. And I couldn't resist. I gave him this great big hug. And he looked at me kind of in shock and goes, hi, how are you? I go, good. And then I went back and we were talking to the lady a little bit more. And she agreed to meet us in what's called the town square. And it's a big town square. I had never been there before. It's really beautiful. It's like a big square in the middle of town. That's like a park with park benches and stuff, and they have like an almost amphitheater where bands can play and different stuff like that. And I guess they do a church service right there, um, in the middle of open town for anyone to come to. And some of the residents at the facility actually go to church there. It's called the 400 block. It's beautiful, very beautiful. And so I had gotten to go there later, but she had agreed after church we would meet her there and talk to her some more and see if we could get her a place to stay. So she ended up, after church, we ended up going, he had some other things to do. So we went to this apartment and helped take in some boxes and clean out trash for this older guy who was getting into a shelter kind of apartment and get set up. So we helped him with that. There was a whole group of us from church that did it. Well, a group of the guys that were residents that had come to church that were vanning back, helping out. Then we stopped at the 400 block and picked up some other residents there. Then we stopped back at the facility. He dropped those guys off. And then we went back to the 400 block to meet with this lady, and she was there. We really didn't expect her to be there because very seldom is a homeless person actually going to show up when you offer them help. Because I think there's a part of them that goes, why are they helping me? What's going on? I don't, we're strangers to them too. So they don't really know what to believe or what to trust. So it's understandable. But she was there. So I sat down and I got to talk to her for about a half an hour, 45 minutes, a little about my testimony, a little bit about trying to get her safe shelter, a little about trying to help her rebalance her life and get her back on her feet. And she told me a little bit about her situation, but not much. She wasn't very open. All of a sudden, the guy from the gazebo, I hadn't seen him forever, shows up again. And, he's standing there, and the other guy that I'm with, who's the resident advisor, that's what I'm going to call him. I don't know if that's really what his title is there. Well, that's what I'm going to call him, because it's just easier, that I go to church with. He is handing out tracts, and he's one of these, I don't know if you've ever seen Living Waters on YouTube. Check him out. Ray Comfort basically does this, and he'll pass out these tracts, and he's talking to people about their salvation and who Jesus is and things like that. And he's got this really cool way of doing it. Well, this guy I go to church with, he can do that really good, and he'll go up to like anybody and have these total blunt conversations about Jesus. And so he's doing that in all his glory, and he's doing a great job. And I'm talking to the lady, and all of a sudden this guy comes back in the picture. And as I'm talking to her, I can realize he's acting weird. This isn't the guy I knew from church. Something's off. And so I kind of get my friend from church to come over and say, I says, can you talk to her for a moment? I'm going to go talk to him. Okay, he goes, so, and I was telling my son, I'm not making much headway. She doesn't want to go to any kind of shelter. She's positive. She's got places to stay. She's not really telling me where. I'll let you try, but I'm not getting anywhere. So he sat down and talked to her for probably about a half an hour before we left. But I took this previous resident aside. Well, he wasn't previous. He was still a resident there, I guess. He just wasn't coming to our church anymore. He had joined a different church. And I was talking to him. As I was talking to him, you could tell he had been drinking. And I'm like, you're a little drunk, dude. And he's like, I can't help it. And all of a sudden he writes down his phone number and gives it to me. And he goes, here, call me. He's going to talk to you. I'm like, okay. I says, about what? What's going on here? And he's like, I can't help it. He goes, you hugged me this morning. He goes, and just something went through me. He goes, and I'm confused. And he goes, let's just talk later. I'm like, Okay, well, before we left the 400 block, up by the amphitheater, he was sitting there. The homeless lady was sitting there, and there was another guy that then I got to meet him. He was homeless too. And huge bottle of vodka, super sized. And I'm like, oh, that's why I couldn't smell it. I could tell you were drunk. And keep in mind, lived with a drunk for 15 years. I can tell if you've had 2 beers. I don't even care if you're really good at hiding it. I will know. Okay, because I was sober at least 10 of those years. And yeah, I immediately I can see actions, reactions, eye contact. I mean, all that I can tell if you've been drinking. And he's really, really seems like he's getting looped. I'm like, okay, he must have went over there and had some more in the last 20 minutes. So then I went up to him and I says, listen, I took him by the hands. I says, don't drink any more today. And I will come back and get you for the evening church service. And I'll take you to church with me. Okay? So, but please, no more drinking today. You can't drink and go back to the facility you're living in. They'll test you, they will throw you out. Because you need to stop right now. Okay, he was gonna come back later that night. Well, I end up going back to the facility with the resident advisor because that's where my vehicle is parked. And then I sit there for a while and I'm kind of hoping he's going to show up. But there's a bunch of other guys there. So we sit outside and I have conversations with these men. And they kind of like that once in a while to have a woman's perspective, a woman around because it's just all men. And you can imagine most of them are pretty high strung because they're coming off of things like they're learning how to deal with life without their go-to, their alcohol, their drugs, their sex, whatever it is. And so they're pretty high strung because those were always their comforts, and now they don't have that anymore. And they also don't have women around; it's all men. So sometimes, when I go talk to them or see them at church, they're just like, it's just really nice to get a perspective, and then we'll talk about topics, from a woman. And I'm like, yeah, I have no problem with that. They're harmless. They seem completely harmless. Well, anyway, I must have spent 3 or 4 hours there, and the resident advisor was getting ready to go to evening church. And he comes out and he goes, well, we're going to take a trip into town at a store first, and then we're going to go to church. And I said, I'll meet you there. He goes, okay, if you ever get out of here. And I said, I know. I said, I haven't been able to leave yet. There's always been somebody that sits down and wants to talk to me. Well, I eventually did get out of there, and I tried to call this other guy's phone. And of course, he's not answering. I'm really hoping he's going to be at the 400 block in Town Square. So I finally get to, leave there, and I go to the Town Square, and he's not there. And I was so sad because I knew for him not to be there, he's still drinking. He's off somewhere drinking up a storm. And I don't know that there's anything I'm going to be able to do to help him at this point. And I remember feeling defeated. I remember feeling sad, not for me, worried about him. And so I just, in the middle of this square, I just stood there, my hands on my hips. And I thought, I really got to go to church. But I don't want to leave here in case he shows up. It's one of those things. It's like you're looking for a missing child, but I'm sure a missing child would be much more extreme, but, it felt like someone was missing. So I'm about ready to get ready to leave, and this old guy with a walker comes start walking through. He's walking the diagonal of the park. He clearly had gone to get food at a fast food restaurant. He had it in his hand. And he looks at me and he goes, ma'am, are you looking for somebody? And I looked at him and I said, yes, I am. He goes, who are you looking for? I said, a homeless man. He goes, because I'll be honest with you, I only knew his first name. I didn't even know who I was looking for. I didn't know this guy very well. And he goes, well, the little guy with the walker, he just takes his walker in front of me and keeps walking. He goes, well, you're not looking for me then because I have a place to live. He was walking. I get a little giggle out of me because I'm just like, that's hilarious. And he gets past me and also he turns around with his walker and he goes, ma'am, would you like to sit down and talk for a moment? I said, sure. There's a bench right behind me, so we go over to the bench. We both sit down. And I know at this point I'm going to be late for church, but this old man is just, he's got my full attention because he's so sweet and he's funny. Well, he sits down by me and he tells me how he lives in the apartments, across the road. He goes, do you know Al Capone used to stay there? And he's telling me these stories. And I mean, he had to be like 85, 90 years old. And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. He goes, yeah, he used to stay there. And that's where he kept all his women. And he's going on about this. And then he goes, I was in prison. You were in prison. He goes, yep. He goes, I was in prison for drugs. I don't know, I guess selling cocaine or something. And he's telling me, he goes, I got a cell once with this guy who was a lifer. And he told me that by the time I come back from lunch, he says that I'm going to have a new cell to go to. He says that he's going to make sure that the suppliers in prison are going to keep him full of cocaine. And I'm like, what? There's suppliers in prison? And he's like, yeah, there is. There always was. Because I always got it. Picture an 85, 90-year-old man being really excited about telling this story. And I'm like, I had to be smile ear to ear because I cannot believe this. This is epically great. Out of nowhere, right? One moment I'm really sad, like want to cry, and then across my path comes this man out of nowhere, just making me giggle like a little schoolgirl. It was hilarious. And so then I said, well, why I said, was the lifer going to hurt you or something that you had to get out of the room? He goes, no, these lifers don't want roommates. They don't want to get close to people. And then those people leave them and they know they're stuck there forever. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, sorry, I don't know much about the prison life, right? So he goes on, he's telling me this stuff. And then finally he's done with his stories. And I didn't say anything, really. I was just there I ended up listening to him, I didn't say anything. I think he needed somebody to talk to, I was really glad to be able to lend him the ear and let him tell his old time stories, because he was a sweet old guy. Well, all of a sudden he gets up and he goes, well, I better let you go, ma'am. He goes, no, I'm going to tell you, your homeless man is probably down by the gazebo. He's going to give me tips on how to find a homeless man. So this is getting great, right? I'm like, okay, all right. He goes, and he tells me where the gazebo is. Well, at this point, I know where it is. He goes, right about this time, people take food down there. He goes on Sunday nights to feed them. He goes, but they always leave before it gets dark. And a pretty lady like you need to get out of there before it gets dark. So you go now. He says, if he's not there, you just leave. He goes, because that's not a safe place for you. I go, okay. This is, well, thank you very much. He goes, and if you can't find your homeless man and you want someone to talk to, keep in mind, I hadn't done any talking yet. Out of all this time, he said I was supposed to be talking to him. I think he wanted someone to talk to, but cute. It doesn't matter. But if you want someone to talk to, at 8 o'clock every night, I look out that window. And if I see you sitting down here on this park bench, he goes, I will come down and talk to you. I was like, oh, I said, thank you, sir. That is so nice. Best gift ever. Total stranger. Old man with quite a history. Like, see, that's part of We the People. I would love to sit down with him again and interview him so that you could enjoy the stories he had to tell me. Because it was remarkable. Must have been 15, 20 minutes. And I just sat there and I was amazed. You, looking at this man, you would never guess the life he lived. And I'm sure I only got a minute fraction of what he could tell us and life lessons. But in the end, he did end up sending me to try to find a homeless man. So I knew I had to, excuse me again, my husband. I had to get going to church. And I was like, well, I should go down to the gazebo. No, I've got to get to church. I've given, this person every opportunity to clean themselves up today and get themselves straight. And clearly they've chosen something else. So I'm going to church. So I did. And I was very late. And when I walked in, the resident advisor looked at his watch and pointed and looked at me like, you missed half of it already? And I was like, I know. So I sat down by him and I said the guy's name. And I said, he was supposed to meet me to come to the evening church and he didn't show up. And he goes, oh, and I said, you know something's wrong. And he's nowhere to be found. And he goes, yeah. And he wasn't supposed to know. If he knows, he could get in trouble. Because they're not supposed to drink. So all day long, he was trying to avoid him so that he wouldn't have to report him, so to speak. And I said, well, I can't find him. And he goes, we'll pray. So church gets done. Say our prayers, praying that he's okay and, he's going to wisen up. But then this advisor had told me, it says, he's been known to go on binges. He's been clean for 7 months, but prior to that, he'll go a week or two where he's just gone. And then he'll all of a sudden show back up and sober back up. But that's the way he is. But for 7 months, he's been clean, and he's just finishing the program. He only had 2 weeks left of the program to go. He just had to stay clean. And that day he chose to do that. So I end up, getting ready to go home, and I'm in my vehicle, and I'm like, oh, it's getting dark. Should I go to the gazebo? And I remember the guy's warning, and he said, don't go after dark. Oh, I probably shouldn't. Okay. If you've watched enough of my videos by now, you know I have no fear. I confront things. I'm very rebellious. Clearly, that's why I've lived a life of adventure that I didn't even ask for. But I said, no, I'm going home. And my gut, that instinct in my gut that I talk about in almost every video, said, go to the gazebo. Go. Fine, I'll go to the gazebo. And I was so tired. It had been a really long day. I didn't get much sleep the night before. And I'll go down there. I'll take a quick glance. I can leave. So I drive down there. I'm in a vehicle. Nobody has vehicles there, so you got to be watchful of your vehicle because they'll steal it in a heartbeat. Okay. Anyway, so I get out, and luckily I'm not too far from my vehicle, and I go to these guys that I had seen in the morning. I said, so, have you seen so-and-so? I said the guy's name, and they're like, no, haven't seen him at all. And all of a sudden I see some guy poking at something, and I realize there's a guy laying flat on his back, his arms out, legs kind of spread, just laying on his back there. And I go, is that guy okay? I'm like, to me, from my perspective, I thought, he looks dead. Like, I couldn't see him breathing. And I walked up to him, and I started walking up there. And then the guy who was poking at his hand, I realized his hand had a fistful of money. And this guy's poking at it like he's trying to get it out. But this was a clenched, hard fist. He wasn't getting it out. I thought, he's dead and there's rigor mortis. My first thought, oh, great. And I'm the one who's got to find this and call the police. No wonder people don't go there after dark, right? So anyway, I do go and I walk up to him, and as I walk up to him, just like that, the guy's chest just fills with air and collapses. And you can hear this just huge breath as if he hadn't breathed in a while, and that was his first breath. I thought, he must have just fallen down, maybe knocked the wind out of him or unconscious. I don't know, but I go racing up. And as I'm about to get down on my knees, I look at him and I go to the other guys, I go, this is the guy I'm looking for. It was him. On his back, almost dead on the ground. And I'm like, no wonder my gut said go to the gazebo. He's going to die. So anyway, and I start saying his name and I pat his face a little bit. And he comes up and he's trying to sit up. The same time that that's happening, I hear all these guys behind me. The cops are here. The cops are here. And they're running. They are gone. I'm not dealing with this. So they take off. The cop walks up to me and he goes, so what's going on here? I said, I don't know. I just came from evening church. I says, and then he gets up, and he wants to stand. And the cop goes, no, stay sitting, sir. He goes, no, I'm going to stand. And he's going to stand. So in order for him to stand, I have to hold him. And he's like 6'3" and a little bit bigger than me, right, 180. And I'm balancing him pretty good. Luckily, I'm 5'9". So I'm balancing him. The cop takes out his thing. He's asking us our names, and all of our information. And he goes, well, I called a medic. The ambulance is on its way. And he goes, no, I'm not going to, see any doctors, blah, 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 blah. He refused. So they called off the ambulance. He called off backup because he's like, I think we've got this, situation under control. And the cop asked me what I knew. I says, well, all I know is that he's 7 months sober, and today he decided he's having a bad day and he fell off the wagon. And he goes, okay, we'll just have a place to go. And I can take him home with me. I couldn't take him to the facility. He was toast. So I bring him home. Yeah, I've done crazier things, okay? Guy I don't know who's homeless and drunk. Welcome to my home. It says in the Bible, you provide shelter. So I provided shelter. And I get him. He's got vomit all over. Crapped his pants. It was bad. But he broke a few things in my bathroom, taking his clothes off, and I had some stuff that he could try to fit into, which luckily worked, and we got him in cleaned. I had to wash parts of him up. I felt like a CRNA nurse. But got him into bed. I was like, oh, that's done. Then I had to go take care of his clothes. I couldn't use my facility's washer and dryer because it was after hours. So I had to wash everything by hand. Not fun. And, then just hang it in my shower to dry till I could put it in the dryer in the morning. And I'm like, oh, I'm really exhausted now. But now how do you sleep? You've got this guy in your house, you don't know anything about him, right? That he's a recovering alcoholic. Why, so I call the resident advisor anyway, and I tell him he's at my place, he's safe. They tell me take him to the crisis center if something happens because, he can have fits of withdrawal and stuff. So if he goes through withdrawal symptoms for health reasons, take him there. I'm like, okay. Otherwise, I was on my own. And I kind of laid down for a couple hours, but when I have somebody around, I don't sleep necessarily. I doze off, but every little sound will wake me up. And so that's what happened. In about 2 hours after I laid down, I hear him, stumbling around. I get up and here he is, he's trying to find his clothes. So he strips down and he's putting on wet clothes because he sees his clothes. He's putting on wet clothes and he realizes, oh, they're wet. So he's putting him on, taking him off. This is a joke. This gotta be a joke, right? I can't believe this is happening. And in the meantime, he's going, we gotta go back down to the gazebo. We gotta go down there. My bike and my bag is down there. Because my stuff is down there. He goes, they'll steal it. They'll steal my stuff. I go, we have been gone long enough. But if they're gonna steal your stuff, it's gone. If it's not, then it's in a safe place. I said, but it is 3 a.m. in the morning. That place is not even safe after dark. I'm not taking you down there at 3 a.m. No way is that happening. And of course, it's way across town. So, it's a 10-minute drive from my place, completely polar opposite end of town. And so, finally he realizes he's not going to win this argument after pacing and putting on wet clothes, taking him off several times, and finally he just went to bed naked. I don't care. I don't care at this point. Just go back to sleep, right? So he does. A couple hours pass, and I realize I have to work at 7. So it's about 5 a.m., 5:30 maybe. And I go, if I'm going to take him down to this gazebo thing, I'm realizing the sun's coming up. I got to do this now. So I do take him, down there. His stuff is all safe. Everything's good. Of course, all these homeless people are going, are you a cop? Why did the cops show up the second you showed up? You must be, undercover cop. And I'm just like, no. Just normal person. God sent them. I don't know. God sent me. They sent the police. I was there like 30 seconds to a minute before the police officer. Okay, so that's how well this worked. And in that minute, the police was able to call for backup and an ambulance. So he might have gotten there almost the same exact time I did. He just had other things to do while I came up to find out where this guy was. So, okay, he gets his stuff, and I work from home, so he's sleeping off his hangover. He can't go back to the facility till he breathes clean. And he has to work that evening, so I tell him, okay, well, I can drive you to work after I'm done with work, which was fine. The hours worked out good. And got him something to eat. And then he tells me, before I drop him off at work, that about his 7 months. I'm like, yeah, I kind of know about that already. And he goes, and I was kind of like, well, so his family, he tells me his family's from Milwaukee, and then he's got other family from like Alaska and Colorado, and they're kind of all over the place, but his primary family is in Milwaukee. I go, what are you doing up here? Because this is way farther north. And he's like, well, he got drunk and is hanging out with friends or something, and ended up in another friend's house and was accused of burglary and this, that, and the other thing, and he got a raw deal, and he had to do jail time, and basically got burglary, felony charges, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, God help me. And here's, this convicted felon. Here I'm thinking he was just at the facility because he was an alcoholic. There's so much more to the story than that. And gosh, I was like, okay, well, everything worked out fine. He turned out fine. We actually did, he cleaned up and he was sober, and he kept saying, how thankful he was. He goes, he says, if you'd have been 30 seconds later, that cop would have taken me to jail and my probation would have been gone. He goes, and I have to finish serving my sentence. He goes, there's no doubt about it. He goes, I'm looking at this as if God sent you to save me from myself. He goes, I'm not going to drink again. And what I knew of him for a few weeks is he didn't drink again. He did keep coming to my church. Again, we did, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show The Chosen. Love it. My favorite series. Check it out on YouTube if you haven't, even if you're not a Christian, even if you're not into the Bible. You'll love the show. It's really awesome. It is about Jesus, but it's the writing and its stuff is great. There's comedy parts and everything. You won't be disappointed. It's called The Chosen. Now, So he came to my place. We watched a couple episodes of that. Um, and then I took him to a 4th of July barbecue um, at the pastor's house and everything. And he had an ex-girlfriend who he was still trying to see. And then there was another girl from our church that he was very interested in. And she just happened to be at the barbecue. And they did get to talk a little bit more. It was pretty much the last time I saw him. But um, he was a hoarder. And part of his room, one of the things that drove him over the edge was his room was all hoarded full. So then I stored some of his stuff for a while. But then things got kind of weird with calling and texting. And then I just, told him, well, he was getting some other place. He was moving into some other place. So I said, so when are you coming to get your stuff? Because you can't keep it here forever. And so then he did come and get his stuff. And then that was the last I ever heard of him. I haven't seen him in church since. But I'm certainly hoping he's doing well and he's clean. But that's my big trying to help somebody homeless adventure. A lot different than people helping me homeless adventure. But I guess I don't try to live life on the edge. I don't try to find um, this stuff, but literally how my gut said, just like if you watch the last video, and I explained, my gut told me I had to go see my grandma in the hospital, even though she was going to be home for Thanksgiving that week. I went to see her the night before, and I was going to spend the night with her, and my grandpa convinced me to go home, and she died the next morning. It's like that. I get these weird things, and that night with the gazebo was that. It was, you gotta go to the gazebo. And even though it was getting dark, I didn't feel like I was in danger. And I do feel God protects me a lot. And I do feel that's where God wanted me to be at that point in time and give him another chance. And by the grace of God, I showed up 30 seconds before that cop, and he got his second chance. And I'm pretty sure he hasn't blown it. I think if you would have seen how stunned he was at how close that was, and that I came from church based on a gut feeling, you can't defy that. But I'm not done helping homeless people. It definitely says in the Bible we're supposed to, and I'm going to, as long as I can. So I'm going to close this off. This took a lot longer than I thought it would. It seemed like such a simple story. I may be homeless again. If I am, I'll do everything I can to keep my phone active and keep posting videos, live videos of me being homeless. I don't know. Life changes on a dime. So I just take it as it goes. I'm content with what God hands me, and I just keep going with it. So, but I picked two Bible verses for this episode because they both seemed very appropriate, and I couldn't decide. Anyone who knows me knows Galatians is my very favorite part of the Bible. It's in the New Testament, and I've chosen Galatians 6, verse 2. Carry each other's burdens, and so you will fulfill the law of Christ. So it is. I mean, we all have burdens, and if we help carry each other's burdens, it's like carrying Christ's cross, and we're helping everybody. Help the homeless. Do what you can. I'm not saying let them all into your home and take the risk I did. It was a risk. It was a huge risk. I could have been hurt. He could have. I don't know that he wouldn't have overpowered me drunk. He was no. I would have won that hands down. But sober, fair fight. But you don't want to get into those situations. So do things to protect yourself, but still try to help in some way. Okay. The other one that I picked is Romans 12, chapter 12, verse 13. Contribute to the needs of God's people and welcome strangers into your home. Now, disclaimer, not total strangers into your home. I look at that more as in, maybe if you're having a Bible study, if it's somebody you've heard of, I wouldn't just let anybody. And unfortunately, in this day and age, I wouldn't recommend that. But maybe get to know people. And once you get to know them, they're not strangers anymore. Um, go down to your homeless shelters. Just start talking to the people. Believe it or not, a lot of them just want someone to talk to. You can help turn their lives around just by having a conversation with them, where maybe they'll have some ambition to want to do something different. They're not seen as an eyesore to society, that they're given some hope, that they have value. That's not every situation. Every situation is 100% different. But you don't know till you go down and you meet them and you get to know them and you try to help them in some way. Whether you want to donate, food or supplies to the shelters, whether you want to volunteer your time at them, whether you just want to be a good Samaritan and spend time, around them, even, like for me, going to the gazebo. I'm not afraid to go there. I'll go there and I'll talk to the homeless. I don't have a problem with that. But it's not for everybody. A lot of people that are fearful to go there. So they would rather go to the actual shelters. But a lot of these people at the gazebo, and the reason they're not at a shelter is because of the fact that drugs and alcohol, they're not clean. My hope is to help get them clean so they have a place and they can start building a life. But only time will tell if that will ever happen. In the meantime, I'm doing what I can when I can. And this channel is a huge support. One of the last things I just want to tack on is, of course, own your truth before the truth owns you. It's a short story that I told in one of my other videos about somebody who had posted a post on Facebook that said, instead of giving them food, giving the homeless food or money, give them a job. Let them mow your lawn. Let them, do different maintenance things. And I had to call that person out because they're not the type of person that's going to take a homeless person home with them to give them work. There's no way they're going to jeopardize their family, their security, and their children. I, on the other hand, I'll bring them home, let them take a shower, wash their clothes. I, on the other hand, will give them work to do. We'll take them home. I can post something like that because that is my truth. And we want to post all this stuff, that great intentions, good ideas, but unless you're going to do it, don't post it. Don't do it just to make yourself look good and then not actually do it. Good ideas are only good if they're followed through. So I just ask that you watch some of the things that you post and say, if I wouldn't actually do this, I shouldn't be the one promoting it. Or after you post it, say, I encourage others to do this. Unfortunately, I don't feel I'm able to, but I think it's a great idea. Stuff like that. Own your truth in it. Don't try to make yourself look better than you are, because it makes you look like a fool. Okay? So own the truth before the truth owns you, and do what you can to help those who sometimes can't help themselves. We all need a helping hand. And like that guy in the park, sometimes just an ear to listen. Be there for them. There's millions of people that don't know each other that can help each other. That's what this channel is about. Use it for that purpose. Start getting to know each other. Okay? All right. I'm signing out. Thanks for staying tuned, and I will see you tomorrow.